Imagine working a 60-hour week. You are hitting every single key performance indicator your boss set out for you.
Right.
You're executing your daily methodology perfectly. You're sleeping 6 hours, drinking the green juice, reading Stoic philosophy, putting in what everyone calls the hard work.
Doing everything you're supposed to do.
Exactly. And yet, despite doing everything perfectly right, you are failing completely.
Yeah, it's
Your
brilliant.
project is stalling, your energy is flatlining, and that massive breakthrough you were promised is just nowhere to be found.
Because the formula is flawed.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. We have all been sold this highly motivational equation that gets painted on gym walls, right, or printed in those airport business books.
Oh, yeah, the classic.
It goes like breakthroughs equals sweat work times good data plus a solid methodology.
It's great on a poster.
But today, we are going to prove to you mathematically that this famous equation is fundamentally broken. I mean, it is entirely empty. In fact, it's missing the single most important variable, which is you.
It's a profound illusion. We use words every single day to describe these massive life-altering concepts. Things like finding our purpose or putting in the effort.
Right.
And we all nod in meetings and pretend we know exactly what hard work means. But if you strip away the motivational music and actually stare at those words, there's no mechanism underneath them.
They're just placeholders.
Exactly. They are linguistic placeholders. There is no actual blueprint in the word methodology that tells you how to enact it in the messy reality of a Tuesday afternoon, when your email inbox is just on fire.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking those blurry, abstract concepts, the vague, ghost-like ideas that you use to describe your own success, your effort, your daily routines, and we are going to explore a framework that transforms them into precise, operational mathematical laws.
It's a massive shift in perspective.
It really is. The source texts we are unpacking today introduce something called Linguistic Resolution and the Full Expression. It's basically a system of meta-mathematics designed to map out exactly how human consciousness interacts with the friction of the real world.
Yeah, we are essentially looking at a diagnostic tool that allows you to graph your own agency.
Wow.
It reveals where you are over-controlling your life to the point of burnout and where you are passively letting the world dictate your identity to the point of drifting.
I have to stop you right there, though, because calling this an algebra for the soul, which is essentially what we are talking about here, sounds a bit reductive, doesn't it?
Sure, I hear that.
I mean, human emotion, burnout, ambition, these things are chaotic and messy.
Yeah.
How can assigning mathematical symbols to my consciousness possibly capture the nuance of, say, a depressive episode or just a sudden irrational burst of creative inspiration?
That's a fair question.
It just feels like we are trying to put a hurricane into a spreadsheet.
That is the exact skepticism you should have. But the math we were discussing today doesn't try to quantify your emotion.
Okay.
It maps your orientation to that emotion. The chaos of human experience is very real, but how you structurally position yourself to deal with that chaos, that is entirely measurable.
So it's about the structure, not the feeling itself.
Exactly. The problem with how we navigate our goals right now is that we build them out of inert materials. Let's look at that broken equation you mentioned earlier. Breakthroughs equals sweat work plus methodology.
Right.
The texts define variables like sweat work and methodology as capacitant potential.
Capacitant potential, meaning they have a capacity, but they don't actually do anything on their own.
Precisely. They are passive vessels waiting to be filled. They have no agency whatsoever.
Got it.
Sweat work doesn't do sweat work. A methodology sitting in a textbook doesn't execute itself. They require an operator to activate them.
It makes me think of having all the individual parts to build a high-end computer sitting on a workbench.
That's a great analogy.
You have a massive graphics card, the motherboard, the CPU, the power supply. Those pieces, the variables of your computer, are incredibly powerful, but right now they are just sitting there.
Do nothing.
Right. They are capacitant. A stick of RAM doesn't have a sudden existential desire to compute.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't wake up wanting to run heavy software. It requires an active agent, a builder, to walk into the room, interface with those pieces, and physically assemble them with intention.
Until that builder walks into the room, that high-end computer is practically indistinguishable from a pile of expensive plastic and silicon.
Yeah, exactly.
The parts enable action, but only through activation. So the question becomes, where does the math actually start?
Right. If the variables of your life, like your skills, your network, your passion, if they're just sitting there on the workbench, how do you interface with them?
Well, the source material introduces the concept of the point of functional interface.
Okay, what's that?
This is the specific threshold where a conceptual idea transitions into a physical operational reality. And in this meta-mathematical framework, the active agent, the builder walking into the room, is represented by the unity operator, the number one.
It is the foundation of everything we are going to discuss today, the number one. But it is vital to understand that this one does not mean the numerical value of a single item.
Right. Does it mean 1 apple or 1 hour?
Exactly. In this system, one means complete presence. It means integrated capacity. It's the singular, unified interface through which all variables in your life must pass to become real.
You, as the conscious operator, are the one.
Let me pressure test this a bit. If I am the one and I am looking at a variable like sweat work, the equation only comes alive when my conscious presence actually engages with the physical reality of the effort.
Yes, you are the one activating the RAM on the workbench.
But sweat work is still just a blurry phrase. How does my one interface with it in a way that actually changes anything?
The text provides a phenomenal case study to illustrate this, focusing on a gold medal track athlete.
Oh, that's perfect.
Because for an Olympian, sweat work is not just a motivational poster. It is an excruciatingly specific set of parameters.
Right, it's measurable.
Exactly. It involves crossing brutal physical and statistical thresholds. It requires immense resilience benchmarks, managing lactic acid buildup, navigating the psychological terror of an injury, and maintaining proximity to number one global performance.
That sounds exhausting just listing it out.
It is. And all of those brutal demands represent the work requirement of the sport.
But again, that list of demands is just capacitant. The track doesn't care if you run on it.
Not at all.
The stopwatch doesn't care if you beat the record. They are just inert facts of the sport.
Exactly. To make it real, the one must interface with that work requirement. But what's fascinating here is that it's not a one-way street.
Meaning you don't just force your way through it.
Right. You don't just impose your will on the track and walk away with a medal. The texts introduce a dynamic equilibrium equation.
Okay, lay it on me.
I won't read the literal mathematical brackets because it sounds like word salad.
Please don't.
But visually, imagine a scale. On one side of the scale, you have your pre-existing skills, your adrenaline, your conscious aggressive exertion. You are actively driving the sweat work.
So I am imposing my one onto the variable.
Yes. You are saying, I will conquer this workout.
That's the side of the scale we celebrate in our culture. You know, the imposing of the will, the grinding.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the scale, there is a counterweight. The math requires that for the system to balance, your one must also be positioned underneath the work requirement.
Underneath it.
Meaning you have to learn when to offer deep humility. You have to let the staggering demands of the job, the reality of human biology, the physics of the track direct you.
You have to surrender to the discipline of the sport.
Exactly.
I have to pause here. Surrender is a very loaded word, especially for high achievers listening to this.
Oh, definitely.
If I'm an executive or an entrepreneur or a top-tier athlete, my entire identity is built on not surrendering. Surrendering sounds like giving up.
It does sound that way. Yeah.
If I yield to the demands of my brutal industry, don't I just become a cog in the machine? How is that an equilibrium?
Because surrendering to the discipline of a craft is entirely different from giving up your agency. Let's look at what happens if you refuse to yield.
Okay.
Imagine an athlete who only ever imposes their will. They ignore the reality of their torn hamstring because their mind says, push harder. What happens?
The system breaks. They suffer a catastrophic injury, and their career ends.
Right. Imposing your will without yielding to the structural reality of the environment is mathematical arrogance.
Mathematical arrogance. I like that phrase.
The one yourself has to maintain a dynamic oscillation between actively deploying energy and passively receiving instruction from the environment.
So you wield your skills as a weapon, but you must yield to the actual requirements of mastery.
You've got it.
Which brings up the absolute core mechanic of this entire meta-mathematical system. We keep talking about wielding and yielding, about imposing and surrendering.
Yeah.
To graph this out, the text relies on the forward/symbol, the division line, but in this framework it have absolutely nothing to do with long division.
Not at all. In mathematics, the slash represents filtered by or shaped by. It is a structural relationship.
Okay.
And there is a golden rule that you must keep in mind for this entire deep dive. The denominator always governs the numerator.
The bottom governs the top.
Exactly. The item at the bottom of the fraction is the context. The item on top is the content. The denominator is the boss. It is the architectural foundation that dictates what the numerator is allowed to do.
Okay, so whatever is on the bottom has executive authority. So if we look at how a human being actually operates in the world, there are two fundamental ways to place the self, the one, in any relationship with a variable.
Right.
And the texts call these two states the iterator mode and the delineator mode.
Let's start with the iterator mode. Visually, this is the variable sitting on top of the fraction and the one sitting solidly at the bottom.
So applying the golden rule, if the one is on the bottom, the one is the denominator, the one is the boss.
Correct. When the one is in the denominator, it means I use this variable. The variable is my instrument.
Got it.
I am the shaping force. I am actively managing the reality above me.
The source material uses the incredibly simple example of taking a walk. If I am the denominator under the variable of walking, it means I am actively using walking as my tool.
Yes.
I decide the route. I decide the pace. If I want to suddenly break into a sprint, I sprint. If I want to stop and stare at a tree for 10 minutes, I do.
You're in charge.
Right. I am wielding the walk. Internal forces are driving the action.
It is a state of high conscious agency. You are the iterator acting through the variable. And the text scales this up to a professional environment, too.
How so?
Imagine a veteran software engineer coding a side project at home. They are the one in the denominator under the variable hours dedicated. They are driving the optimization. They choose the programming language. They set their own aggressive pace. They take breaks when their brain needs it. They're entirely self-directed.
Very iterator. But then we flip the fraction. We move into the delineator mode. Visually, the one moves to the top, the numerator, and the variable drops to the bottom to become the denominator.
The variable is now the context. The variable is the boss.
Meaning this variable uses me or this variable shapes me, I am yielding to its structure.
Right.
If we go back to the walking example, if walking routine is now the denominator and I'm the one sitting on top of it, my entire reality changes.
Completely.
I am no longer deciding the pace or the route on a whim. I am submitting to a predetermined structure. Maybe it's a marathon training plan I paid for.
Yeah, the plan dictates that you run exactly 10 miles today at a specific heart rate.
And if I see a nice tree, I don't get to stop. I yield to the routine, and the routine governs me.
You are allowing the external structure to shape your internal capacity. The professional parallel here is an intern showing up for their first week at a massive tech firm.
Oh, that's a good one.
They're the one on top, and the massive corporate infrastructure is the denominator.
Yeah, as an intern, you give your time, you offer your presence, but external forces, a manager, a strict daily stand-up meeting schedule, the legacy code base, they direct your actions.
Exactly. You are letting the variable shape you.
This sounds perfectly logical in isolation, but this notation actually operates as a brutal psychological diagnostic.
It really does.
It asks the listener a very uncomfortable question. Which mode are you living the majority of your life in?
Right, because if you look at your calendar right now, and you honestly assign a fraction to every meeting, every task, and every relationship,
It will reveal your mental architecture.
the texts identify a highly problematic personality profile based on this very exercise. They call it the R1V, the responsive one variable.
The R1V is someone whose fractions are almost universally top-heavy. The one is constantly trapped in the numerator. They're always being shaped by the variables underneath them.
If your daily life is structurally written as you over the mood of your manager, plus you over the shifting trends of the market, plus you over the unspoken expectations of your peer group,
Then you are an R1V. You have no internal anchor. Every external wind dictates your direction.
you are a perpetual intern in your own life.
And I have to be honest, I've had years of my career that felt exactly like this, where my entire 8-hour workday was just me sitting on top of a denominator called inbox emergencies.
We've all been there.
The inbox completely governed my existence. I wasn't initiating anything. I was just responding to whatever fires the universe decided to light that day.
It is exhausting.
It really is. It breeds deep resentment because you feel like you are working incredibly hard, but you have zero actual agency.
That resentment is the friction of being a permanent delineator. But the alternative isn't just to become a dictator who only operates in iterator mode.
Right.
The healthy architecture, according to the framework, is the AV1, the autonomous variable 1.
The AV1 is strategic. They know exactly when to wield a variable and exactly when to yield to one.
An autonomous variable 1 creates a dynamic balance. For instance, they might structure their career so that they are the firm denominator underneath their core competence.
Okay.
They aggressively wield their craft, practice deliberately, and assert their expertise. But simultaneously, they willingly place themselves in the numerator above market feedback.
Ah, I see. I wield my competence, but I yield to the reality of what the world actually needs.
Exactly.
I let the market's feedback shape what I do with my competence tomorrow. That is an incredibly grounded way to operate. You have an internal anchor, but you remain porous to the environment.
And that concept of alternating your agency,
Mm.
simultaneously wielding one thing while yielding to another, is the crucial bridge into the most complex and vital part of this deep dive.
Oh boy.
We're going to look at the full expression.
Okay, listener, this is where we need your full attention. Here's where it gets really interesting. We are going to build a mental map.
Yes.
The source texts present a massive multi-tiered equation that maps out how a human being relates to 4 different major life variables at the exact same time. It is essentially a snapshot of a highly functioning person tackling a major life goal.
To make this concrete, let's assign real-world meaning to these 4 variables.
Sounds good.
Let's call variable A your technical skill. Variable B is your social connection or your community. Variable C represents the industry reality, the brutal macroeconomic facts of your field. And variable D is your passion or internal purpose.
Okay, let me just lock that in. Skill, community, industry, passion. Got it. Now, this massive equation is split into 2 distinct halves. Let's look exclusively at the left half.
Right.
This represents your initial agency orientation. It is how almost every ambitious person naturally sets themselves up when they begin a major pursuit, whether it's launching a startup, writing a book, or changing careers.
The left half is built like a massive 2-story house. Let's look at the top floor first, the macro numerator.
Okay.
This top floor represents your day-to-day conscious actions. Inside this top floor, you are simultaneously doing 2 things. First, you are the foundation underneath your technical skill.
So I am wielding it. I am aggressively driving my own learning, practicing my craft, pushing my boundaries.
Yes, you're the boss of your skill. But that action is synthesized, colliding, and merging with a second action.
Which is?
You are concurrently placing yourself on top of your social connection. You are letting the community be your foundation.
Okay, let's unpack that. I am driving my technical skills hard, but I am doing it while remaining completely open and yielding to the wisdom, the feedback, and the needs of my peers and mentors.
It's that.
I'm not a lone wolf. I'm letting the network influence me.
Right. It is a highly functional daily state. You are simultaneously the iterator over your skill and the delineator under your community. And crucially, the math shows that you are consciously governing this entire top floor dynamic.
You are choosing to operate this way.
Yes, you are the executive director of your daily grind.
That is the top floor. But you said this is a 2-story house. What is the ground floor? What is the macro denominator that holds up and contextualizes this entire daily operation?
The ground floor, the macro context that governs your whole life during this phase, is a synthesis of the remaining 2 variables: industry reality and passion.
Okay, how do they fit together?
In this foundation, you are yielding to the industry reality. You accept the brutal facts of the market, the gravity of the economy, the rules of the game you are playing. It shapes you.
Makes sense.
But colliding with that acceptance, you are actively wielding your passion. You are using your internal purpose as an aggressive engine to keep pushing forward despite the gravity of the industry.
Okay, picture a massive stone archway. The top part of the arch, the part visible against the sky, is my daily life. I am consciously choosing to hammer away at my technical skill while humbly letting my community shape my perspective. But that entire top archway is only standing because it is resting on 2 massive pillars deeply embedded in the dirt.
Perfect visual.
Those pillars are the macro reality. The fact that I am entirely at the mercy of the industry's gravity, and the fact that I am furiously burning my own passion as fuel to survive it.
The text calls this the double-tier architecture. You are simultaneously the driver of your daily actions and the passenger of the macro environment.
You wield your skill and passion, you yield to your peers and the market.
Exactly.
It honestly sounds like the blueprint for a perfect professional life. You are ambitious but humble. You are realistic about the market but driven by internal fire. If someone achieves this architectural balance, aren't they done?
You think so?
Why would you ever mess with a structure that is holding up the archway so perfectly?
Because the universe is not static and human psychology is fragile. If you stay in that exact orientation forever, the house will eventually collapse.
I need you to explain the mechanics of that collapse, because to me, driving my skills and listening to my peers sounds like a permanent recipe for success. Why does it break?
Let's look at the friction of the iterator mode over a long timeline. If you spend 10 years aggressively wielding your technical skill, always being the one to drive the learning, always forcing the optimization, always needing to be in control of your craft,
What happens?
you develop severe tunnel vision,
Yeah.
you over-control the variable, you stop allowing the craft to surprise you, you burn out on the sheer metabolic cost of constantly generating the force required to wield it.
Oh, I become a control freak over my own work.
Exactly. Now look at the delineator mode.
Yeah.
If you spend 10 years continuously yielding to the industry reality, always letting the market dictate what is possible, always adapting to macroeconomic trends, always being the good soldier to the industry's demands,
Yeah.
you lose your innovative edge. You become dangerously compliant. You stop trying to change the industry and just settle for surviving it.
You drift. Your passion burns out because you spent a decade using it just to cope with a market that governs you.
Precisely. To achieve true lasting mastery, you cannot stay in your initial orientation. You need a structural disruption. You need a cognitive martial arts move that the source texts call the inversion pick.
The inversion kick. This is the climax of the entire metamathematical framework, and it brings us to the right half of this massive equation.
The right half of the full expression is the exact mirror of the left, but with every single agency position violently flipped.
Every fraction is inverted.
Yes. What you wielded, you now must yield to. What governed you, you now must wield. You literally kick the variables into their opposite positions to create a second pass at your life.
Let's walk through the terror of actually executing this. Let's look at the new ground floor, the macro reality.
Okay.
In the first half of my life, the industry reality governed me. I accepted the brutal rules of the market. But with the inversion kick, the fraction flips. The industry is no longer the denominator. I am.
Yes. You used to yield to the industry. Now you must actively wield it. You transition from surviving the market to manipulating the market.
Right.
You use the industry as your tool to shape the world. You set the trends. You disrupt the legacy systems. You are the denominator, and the entire industry rests on your shoulders.
And the other pillar on the ground floor was passion. I used to wield my passion. I used it as a blunt instrument, burning it for fuel to grind through the hard days. But now, the kick flips it. Passion becomes the denominator. I am sitting on top of it. Passion shapes me.
This specific flip is perhaps the most profound psychological shift in the entire framework.
How so?
The texts highlight this new fraction with a special notation. It is called deep integration. Yielding to your passion on the second pass is not just about letting a feeling dictate your Tuesday.
Right.
It is yielding to the variable until the boundary between you and the variable disappears entirely.
Hold on, let me try to translate that. When I wielded my passion, I was saying, I have a passion for architecture, so I'm going to use that energy to stay up late drafting blueprints.
Right. The passion is separate from you. It's a battery you plug into.
But deep integration, it's a shift in identity.
Exactly. Think back to the walking example. Wielding walking is I walk for exercise. Yielding to a strict routine is I have to walk at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
But deep integration is the point where the action permanently alters your structural identity. It shifts from I walk to walking as who I am.
So in this right half, my passion isn't a battery anymore. I am not using it. It is my foundational reality. The boundary dissolves.
Yes.
My new macro reality is that I am actively bending the industry to my will while existing in a state of complete peaceful identity with my purpose. That is a radically different existence than grinding for survival.
And the daily actions, the top floor, they flip just as dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Technical skill, which you spent years aggressively driving and controlling, you now must yield to.
I have to let my skill govern me. But what does that actually mean? Do I stop trying to get better?
No, it means you stop forcing the outcome. You let your actual deeply earned mastery dictate your choices. Think of a master jazz musician. For 20 years, they wielded their instrument, practicing scales until their fingers bled, controlling every note.
Right. Highly iterator.
But at a certain level of mastery, they execute the kick. They yield to the instrument. They walk on stage and let the music dictate what happens. They trust the physical capacity they built. They stop driving and start flowing.
Oh, that's beautiful. And finally, social connection, the community. For years, I yielded to my peers. I let the network shape my perspective. I was the humble student. But now, I have to wield it.
You become the denominator for the community. You build the network. You direct the energy of your peers. You step into the role of the mentor, the architect of the social structure.
But, and this is the mathematical secret that makes this whole framework so staggering, these two halves of your life aren't just sitting next to each other sequentially.
No, they are not.
It is not just spend 10 years being a student, cross it off a list, and spend 10 years being a master. There is a specific mathematical operator connecting the left half to the right half, an asterisk.
The symbol for synergistic amplification.
Okay, I need to push back on this term.
Go for it.
Synergistic amplification sounds like a phrase a middle manager makes up to justify a corporate merger. What does this asterisk actually signify in the reality of a human life? Because if it's just adding the two phases together, why not use a plus sign?
Because it is not addition. It is an exponential compounding loop. The asterisk means that the two halves of your life mathematically multiply each other.
Multiply, okay.
Look at the variable of community. Your initial phase where you were the delineator, yielding to the network, humbly listening to the needs of the group, feeling the pain of being at the bottom of the hierarchy. That experience is what makes your inverted phase exponentially more effective.
Oh, wow.
When you execute the kick and become the leader wielding the community, you aren't leading from a place of theoretical management. You are leading with the embedded structural knowledge of what it feels like to be yielded to.
The insights I gained while being governed by the industry make me infinitely more lethal when I finally decide to bend the industry to my will. The mastery multiplies.
Exactly. And it retroactively compounds, too. Your new experience as a leader deeply changes how you understand the basic skills you thought you mastered a decade ago. It is an endless loop of compounding capacity, left multiplied by right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, why go through the trouble of notating human existence this way? Nobody is going to sit at a coffee shop and write out nested brackets to figure out if they should quit their job.
They should, because this equation is the ultimate ruthless diagnostic tool. It strips away the stories we tell ourselves and tests for structural asymmetry.
How does it test for that?
It asks you a devastating question. When you attempt to flip your agency, does your mental system break?
It forces you to audit your own self-deception.
Precisely. Let's look at technical skill again. You claim you have reached mastery. You claim you have oscillated. You tell everyone that after years of grinding, you are now yielding to your true capacity. You say you are in the flow state.
Right.
But the math forces you to look at the fraction.
Do I actually yield to my capacity, or do I just claim I can yield? But the second the market gets tough, the second I feel insecure about a project, I panic and force my technical skill right back into the driver's seat.
Yes. Do you revert to iterator mode, micromanaging every detail? Because yielding is terrifying, and grinding gives you the illusion of control.
Oh, that hits close to home. Or take social connection. You get a promotion. You tell yourself you are now wielding the community. You are the leader. You are setting the vision.
But if we graph your actual daily decisions, do you really lead? Or are your fractions still top-heavy?
Do I still secretly let the community's opinions, the fear of what my employees think of me, shape my every move because I am terrified of absolute authority?
The equation exposes the lie. It shows you exactly where you are a responsive weather vane masquerading as a leader and where you are an exhausted control freak masquerading as a master.
And when you finally spot those lies, and you do the agonizing internal work to actually balance the equations, when you can truly wield a variable with strength and truly yield to it with grace without losing yourself, you unlock what the source texts call the fourth quarter principle.
I love this concept.
I was fascinated by this. The text insists that true mastery is not just the sum of the parts. It is not just 50% wielding and 50% yielding. The fourth quarter is the emergent capacity that only exists because you have genuinely survived both the iterator and delineator sides of the interface.
Think of building an electrical circuit. You spend years meticulously building the plug. You spend years meticulously wiring the outlet, but the system is dead.
Right.
The fourth quarter is the spark of electricity that leaps across the gap the exact moment the plug meets the outlet. That spark doesn't belong to the plug. It doesn't belong to the outlet.
It is a completely new emergent property.
Yes. The asterisk operator, the synergistic amplification, is what generates that spark. It is a state of integrated mastery that you cannot read about. You cannot hack it. You have to earn it by consciously sweating through both sides of the mathematical threshold.
All right, I need to bring this all the way down to earth because we have gone incredibly deep into the rabbit hole of mathematics today.
We really have.
We are talking about unity operators, exponential compounding loops, and emergent electrical sparks. But if I am a listener sitting in traffic right now, heading to a job where I feel either completely overwhelmed or completely bored, what is the practical takeaway? How do I actually do an inversion kick today?
The texts provide a clear four-step application protocol. It requires brutal honesty. Step 1, establish your initial orientation.
Okay.
Take out a piece of paper and write down the 3 biggest variables in your life right now. Maybe it's your health, your marriage, and your career. Identify where you placed your 1. Where are you the iterator, constantly driving, planning, and exhausting yourself trying to control the outcome?
And where are you the delineator, passively waiting for your partner, your boss, or your genetics to dictate what happens next?
Exactly. Just map the fractions, look at your calendar, and ask, who is the denominator in this hour?
Okay, map the fractions. What's step 2?
Step 2, assess the structural balance. Is your entire life built on one side of the fraction line?
Are you on the verge of total system failure because you refuse to yield control of anything?
Or are you severely depressed because you have allowed every external force to be your denominator?
Which leads to step 3. Execute the inversion kick. You have to manually, consciously disrupt your own architecture.
This is where the friction is. This is the hardest part. Pick one variable. Let's say it is your physical fitness.
Okay, my fitness.
If you have been grinding for 2 years, obsessively tracking every macro, punishing yourself with heavy lifts, forcing your body to adapt, you are trapped in iterator mode. You are wielding it until it breaks.
So how do I kick?
To execute the kick, you must consciously force yourself into the numerator. You must yield. You walk into a restorative yoga class, you lie down, and you let a stranger tell you exactly how to breathe for an hour.
Oh, wow. Surrender the control.
The psychological rebellion you feel in that room, the voice telling you that you aren't working hard enough, that is the friction of the kick.
Or look at the opposite. Let's say you are an aspiring writer. You've been yielding to creative inspiration for 5 years. You wait for the muse. You let your mood dictate if you write.
Yeah, totally governed.
You are trapped on top of the fraction, being completely governed by a sickle variable. You execute the kick by becoming the denominator. You set an alarm for 5 a.m., you sit at a desk, you set a timer for 60 minutes, and you force words onto a page whether you feel like it or not.
You wield the discipline.
You fire the muse and become the boss.
Exactly. You manually force the asymmetry to break. And finally, step 4, allow the phases to compound. You don't just kick once and declare victory. You alternate.
You wield, and then you yield. You drive the car, and then you study the mountain.
You let the lessons from the discipline amplify the inspiration, and the lessons from the surrender amplify the strength.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? It means that the motivational posters lied to you. You are not a passive variable in the equation of your own life, waiting for hard work to magically unlock a breakthrough.
No, you're not.
You are not a victim of circumstance, and you are not a machine meant to just grind endlessly until your gears strip. You are the conscious architect, the unity operator, the one of your entire reality.
Yes.
You have the absolute power to decide when to grip the steering wheel with white knuckles, and you have the wisdom to decide when to let go and let the terrain teach you how to drive.
It is a profound reclamation of human agency. It moves us away from hoping for success and gives us the tools to mathematically engineer our own integration.
We have covered staggering ground today. We started by looking at the blurry, empty words we use to describe our goals and realized they are just capacitant potential dead wiring waiting for a spark.
We discovered that the Stark is the self, the one, the conscious interface.
We tore down long division and learned 1 over logic, understanding that the denominator always holds executive authority over our lives.
We mapped out the devastating difference between wielding a tool to the point of exhaustion and yielding to a structure to the point of disappearance.
We stood back and looked at the double-tier architecture of the full expression, marveling at how we try to balance our daily grind with the macro gravity of our industries.
And most importantly, we learned the sheer psychological violence and necessity of the inversion, kick-flipping our entire reality upside down to unlock the emergent spark of the 4th quarter.
It is an operating system for deep integration.
It really is.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, we always like to leave you with a final lingering thought, something to pressure test in your own mind as you navigate the rest of your week.
We have spent this entire time talking about the friction between wielding and yielding. We talked about the division line that separates your conscious self from the variables of the world. But consider this. What happens when you run this math over and over, compounding the loop for decades? What happens when your conscious identity becomes so deeply, irrevocably integrated with the variables of your craft, your community, and your purpose?
Oh, wow.
Is it possible that the division symbol itself, the boundary that separates you from the action, eventually wears thin and vanishes entirely?
Huh.
Is there a theoretical state of comprehensive comprehension, where the metamathematics simply dissolves and you are no longer the operator managing the system, but you become the unified field itself?
A state where there is absolutely no separation between the dancer and the dance. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. As you look at the fractions of your own life today, in your work, your relationships, and your ambitions, ask yourself the most important question. Am I the iterator or the delineator right now? And is it time for an inversion kick?